Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome Janet Galpin from the Boonwurrung Land and Sea Council to give our welcome to country.
Thank you. Wominjeka. Wominjeka is the Boonwurrung language word for come with purpose. So Wominjeka, Miram, Big, Boonwurrung, Nambert, Barupton, Atawelan. Come with purpose to our beautiful home, land of the two bays. And we all know that your purpose today is to be here for the musculoskeletal Rattle Ya Bones Day, National Awareness Day. And this day will be filled with learning and inspiration. And I feel very privileged to be here today and speak with you. 23 years ago, I had an accident that damaged the fibres of some of my muscles, which eventually resulted in chronic pain fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. But I was undiagnosed for about 4.5 to 5 years, and lucky found a specialist who'd been travelling overseas to conferences and picked up on all the different symptoms that I had. So it's 23 years ago now, and it was a really long, painful journey. I also found a holistic chiropractor who worked with me for 15 years, and I still see her once a month. So I feel very lucky that I'm upright, moving, and able to live my life quite fully compared to where I've been in the past. So the musculoskeletal conditions are often very hard to diagnose and treat, and I know that's why you're all here. So today you are on a yawa. A yawa is a journey of discovery and hopefully some answers and a sharing of knowledge. And this yawa is also about deep listening, which is an absolute must. Deep listening you must have to problem solve musculoskeletal disorders. I'm also honoured to be with you, and it's my purpose today to deliver a welcome to country. So welcome to all of you and welcome to our beautiful country. We pay our deep respect today to all of you, and we have the pleasure of welcoming you from whichever country you are from. I am a direct descendant from our First Peoples and cousin to Nawit, Professor Carolyn Briggs AM, the elder of the Boonwurrung, and I am here today representing her. And I'm also obviously of Irish and English descent. We are the custodians of our lands that extend from the Wilson's Promontory in the east to the mouth of the Werribee in the west, encompassing both of our beautiful bays, Western Port we call Murren and Port Phillip we call Nam. So today we meet on the country of our ancestors, and we pay our respect, not just today, but always to our ancestors, those people who came before us. And we're especially pleased to recognise the commitment that you've made here today in paying respect to the spirit of this land and to our First Peoples. We are the oldest surviving living culture in the world, and this is something that we want all Australians and peoples of other countries to connect to. Australia also has the world's oldest oral stories. Our First Peoples engraved the world's first maps and made the earliest paintings of ceremony, and the very first footprints on this continent were those belonging to our First Peoples. First Nations people across Australia all share a special connection to the lands and the waters of their ancestors that has not been disconnected from the millennia, despite dispossession, displacement and discrimination that we have experienced over the last 200 plus years. We know who we are and we know where we're from. We know our ancestors, we know our families, and we know that our fellow Australians have much to learn from us and our history. So according to tradition, this land has always been protected by Bunjil, who travels as an eagle, and our waterways are protected by Wa, who travels as a crow. And Bunjil taught the Bunwurrung to always welcome guests, but he requires that we all acquiesce to two promises that I will ask of you all here today. And the first law of Bunjil is not to harm the land, and the second is not to harm the children of this beautiful land. And if we can commit ourselves to these two promises, we live in a far better world. Nungudjan. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning and welcome to Rattle Ya Bones Day. My name is Jade Roweth and I'm the Chair of Musculoskeletal Australia. Thank you to Janet Galpin and the Eastern Kulin Nation of the Boon Wurrung Bunurong and Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung peoples, who as the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet have welcomed us so warmly here today. It is wonderful to see so many of you join us this morning to support and help shine a bright orange spotlight on the real and serious conditions that impact our muscles, joints and bones. The term musculoskeletal is perhaps not the most commonly used, but all of us here today would know or even perhaps live with one of the 150 conditions that fall under this banner, including arthritis, back pain and osteoporosis. In fact, 1 in 3 Australians live with the personal, professional, health and financial impacts of living with one of these conditions. Just take a moment to think about that. Take a look at the person to the left of you and then to the person on the right. Statistically speaking, it is more than likely that at least one of you will be living with the negative impacts of having a musculoskeletal condition. That is why Rattle Ya Bones Day is so important. These conditions are hidden. Many go about their daily lives navigating the pain, discomfort and challenges in silence, and they feel invisible. So Rattle Ya Bones Day is all about lifting that cloak of invisibility, shining a light on good musculoskeletal health, and supporting the millions of Australians living with these conditions. Of course, a National Day of Action and events like this one is not possible without the hard work of our amazing MSK team and the incredible support of our amazing sponsors, the City of Glen Eira, Gary Peer, Statewide Home Healthcare and Sports Accounting. Could you please put your hands together to show our appreciation for making today possible? I would also like to formally acknowledge Mr Josh Burns, MP, Federal Member for Macnamara, Deputy Mayor Councillor Anne-Marie Cade, multi-award-winning national science journalist for The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald, Mr Liam Mannix, pain scientist, educator and clinician Professor Lorimer Mosley, Musculoskeletal Australia ambassadors Miss Michaela O'Neill and Mr Matthew Sutherland, and Miss Tracy Rudd and Associate Professor Alberta Hoy from the Australian Rheumatology Association. I would also like to thank my fellow board members who are here this morning, Deputy Chair George Calamelis, Immediate Past Chair Deepak Sanghvi, Natalie Siriani and David Charles. It is now my absolute pleasure to introduce for the first time in a formal capacity our new Chief Executive Officer of Musculoskeletal Australia, Miss Helen Gents. Helen joins us having successfully led a number of national peak bodies across a range of areas, including health, education and business. At one of our first meetings, Helen said that working for a For Impact organisation was one of the most exciting things anyone could do. Her approach to driving real, systemic and meaningful change that has impact for some of the most vulnerable people in our communities is infectious. And I'm so pleased that Helen's first official function is Rattle Ya Bones Day. Whilst I'm reliably informed that orange is not part of Helen's personal colour wheel, it is great to see that she has put that aside for one day and has a touch of orange to raise awareness and understanding and to rattle her bones here this morning. Please welcome Helen.
Thanks, Jade, and a bright orange welcome to everyone who has taken time out of their incredibly busy schedules to join us here today to rattle your bones and support Musculoskeletal Australia to shine a spotlight on muscles, joint and bone conditions that impact millions of Australians every day. My name is Helen Jentz, and I will be trick and treating you through this morning's fantastic event. We have a range of incredible and inspiring speakers here this morning who have generously given their time and will be sharing their personal experience and professional expertise. Listening to people's lived experience with musculoskeletal conditions is both inspiring and challenging. As you will hear, and I am sure as many of you personally know, the emotional, physical and financial impacts of having a musculoskeletal condition are significant. They affect every aspect of your life: work, relationships, socialising, family. Living with the chronic pain of a musculoskeletal condition can impact you physically, mentally and emotionally. And yet, the millions of Australians who have at least one of the 150 recognised musculoskeletal conditions feel invisible. That's why for over 50 years, Musculoskeletal Australia has been providing support, information and services and advocating for national action that will deliver real, sustainable and impactful change that improves Australia's musculoskeletal health. And that's why Rattle Ya Bones Day is so important. Today is a national call to action to lift the cloak of invisibility and shine a big orange spotlight on what it is like to live with a musculoskeletal condition. It's an opportunity to unite, rattle your bones and make some noise to support the incredibly important work we do here at Musculoskeletal Australia, as well as letting those living with these conditions know that they are seen, to show them compassion and understanding and to support them as they navigate what can, in many cases, be life-altering chronic conditions. Uniting and rattling our bones here today is one pretty simple thing we can all do to raise awareness and understanding about the importance of bone, muscle and joint health and musculoskeletal conditions. And there's another incredibly important initiative that we are asking everyone to participate in and promote through your personal and professional networks. That, of course, is the 2023 National Musculoskeletal Consumer Survey. MSK established the National Consumer Survey in 2020. Yes, I think we can all agree, not the greatest of timing. But we were amazed at the number of people who wanted to tell their story and have their voice heard when it came to living with a musculoskeletal condition. Gaining information about the complex issues of living with or caring for someone who has a musculoskeletal condition is so important to building a clear picture of how we go about driving real, systemic and sustainable change that has a positive impact on people's healths and lives. When undertaking a survey of this size and scope, it does, as they say, take a village. And I would like to formally acknowledge and thank our survey partners, the Australian Rheumatology Association and Pain Australia. A little later on today, I will be telling everyone how they can participate in and promote the survey. Now that I've given you a little treat as to some of the important initiatives Musculoskeletal Australia currently has underway, I'm very pleased to invite to the stage Josh Burns MP. Josh was first elected in 2019 and holds several key parliamentary roles, including Chair of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Human Rights and Chair of the Foreign Affairs and Aid Subcommittee of the Joint Standing Committee of Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade. Josh's commitment to ensuring Australia pursues proactive and inclusive foreign policy has its foundations in the experience of his family. He is the grandson of migrants who left Europe and settled in Melbourne in search of a safe place to raise their families. He holds a firm belief in the critical role education plays in changing lives, as well as upholding the principles of a multicultural, multi-faith Australia. Like all good Melburnians, Josh enjoys world-class coffee that, fortunately for him, can be found right here in his electorate. And he also enjoys spending time with his daughter and playing basketball. I would like to thank Josh for being with us here today to officially launch the 2023 Musculoskeletal Consumer Survey. Welcome, Josh.
Well, that was a nice introduction. It was like I wrote it myself. Good morning, everyone. And I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners, the Bunurong people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I'm not sure if Janet's still here or if she had to race off, but Janet always is someone who delivers that welcome to country with poise and dignity, and I'm very fond of Janet, as I am the entire organisation, the Bunurong Land and Sea Council. But it's been a difficult time for Janet and her people, and she gave me a big hug a few days ago, and it's very nice to see her here, and I thank her for her warm welcome to country. I am very pleased to be here because, like so many people in Australia and right across the world, musculoskeletal conditions are ones that affect me and my family and have so for years. The story I will tell you this morning is one of my grandfather, who's still alive, and my grandfather had, and still does, crippling arthritis in his hips, crippling. And he walked with a real hobble for 25, 30 years. And the thing that I found amazing about my grandfather is that he used to have stairs in his house, and every day he would walk up those stairs with this hip condition, this hip arthritis, and bring coffee and breakfast to my grandmother. And we all thought he was mad, and we all told my grandmother, come downstairs and have breakfast downstairs. But he insisted, and it must have hurt him excruciatingly to walk up those stairs. But he did it every day, and it was a wonderful gesture of how much my grandmother meant to him. And I know that for so many people around the country, that to have a musculoskeletal condition is one where even those small things that we just do on a daily basis, like walking up a flight of stairs, can be one that is a real effort and a real journey of pain and of struggle. And a lot of people struggle in silence, and a lot of people suffer in silence. And I think one of the important things about Musculoskeletal Australia and the work that's being done as part of this effort is that people shouldn't have to suffer in silence. People shouldn't have to go on those small journeys by themselves without at least acknowledgement of the conditions that they're in and without at least acknowledgement of the difficulties that they face. So we have a lot of work to do. And I think the key of this survey is to understand what are the experiences of people right now in Australia in 2023. What are people going through? And allowing them to raise their voice and to have their say. So on that note, I am extremely pleased to be able to be here today and to officially launch the very savvily named 2023 National Musculoskeletal Consumer Survey, and say that I hope it is one where that work really gives voice to people who are going through difficult times. I hope it is a survey where people are able to contribute to and add to a national conversation where improvements are made and progress is given to those people, our fellow country people who are suffering with musculoskeletal conditions. I thank you very much for allowing me to be here today, and I wish you well on this journey. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh. Understanding, or at the very least educating ourselves as to what it's like to live with a musculoskeletal condition is critical to lifting the cloak of invisibility around these health conditions. That's why we are so grateful to be joined here today by MSK Ambassador Matthew Sutherland. Matthew lives with, and I am going to apologise because I will probably pronounce this incorrectly. Please cut me a little bit of slack. It is my third week in the job. Ankylosing spondylitis. Sorry? So close. I'm sure Matthew will. I particularly liked when I was writing this part, or AS for short. A qualified counsellor and psychotherapist, Matthew has been actively volunteering at and supporting Musculoskeletal Australia for many years. I think it is most appropriate to use Matthew's own words when he describes his engagement with MSK, and I quote, "To play a small role in driving broader awareness of the social challenge of muscle, bone and joint conditions was to feel my personal challenge could be the source of self-worth, not self-stigma. Matthew has harnessed this self-worth, drawing on his lived experience, and helps others to reconnect to their own strengths and use this to raise awareness and drive change for all Australians living with a musculoskeletal condition." Please welcome Matthew.
Thanks, Helen. I am really nervous today, and I'm not usually made nervous by public speaking, but I think it's the thought of being perfectly honest for the next 10 minutes that is really quite daunting. The first question always is, how honest should I be? I'm here to be honest, to a point, about the shadow that a chronic MSK condition, in my case, ankylosing spondylitis, has cast over my entire adult life. But I do feel the need to shape my story to end in hope. A hope I'm still struggling to feel day to day. Maybe it's best simply to speak and to see where honesty can lead us. I recently passed a significant age milestone. I'll be coy about which one. And I have only the ghosts of the human achievements that seem to me the most fundamental and the least we're all entitled to aspire to. The fulfilled search for a life partner, the creation of a family and the nurturing of new lives within it, the physical and mental stamina to sustain a professional career and to make an enduring social contribution to the welfare of others. All hard to attain when from a sudden point in your early teens, your spine, pelvis and legs are locked into a tight, burning, twisting vice in every waking moment of bodily awareness. The necessary clinical shorthand for this awareness is pain. And as I want to make clear, pain does not make me special or singular. It just confirms me as human, because to be human is to be aware of a self that is wounded. If my work as a counsellor has taught me anything, it's that every one of us has a hidden wound, a hidden source of shame. To live with a chronic health condition, such as an MSK disorder, is only one form this human fragility can take. I've also learnt that every one of us feels that some degree of self-concealment is a necessary condition for a successful life. That's an irresistible conclusion when the public selves we see all around us appear to flourish on their false projections of certainty and strength, on the denial of the wounded self that lives within them as surely as it lives within us, locked away but continuing to grow in their inner dark as shame. So let me focus briefly on how shame can work in relation to a common but hard to voice consequence of life with a chronic MSK condition. What is it to begin to suffer steady and irreversible structural degeneration in your lower spine and pelvis concurrent with the onset of puberty? Well, for one thing, it means you'll only ever experience sexual intercourse, that embodied culmination of your felt connection to another human being, in terms of an agonising physical pain. Your pain can become apparent to the other, turning what should be a joyous interaction into a shared emotional ordeal. Or perhaps your pain can be temporarily hidden by a performance of orgasmic ecstasy to spare the other's feelings and not block their own path to sexual fulfillment in the moment. Think a poor masculine imitation of Meg Ryan in that cafe. And yes, sadly, I'm showing my age with that cultural reference. The obvious problem there is that what should be your most profound relational experiences become a pretense of something shared. Such are the life losses generated by the invisible disability of a chronic MSK condition. Invisible on the body's surface, but flourishing so deeply within that you feel you could never reach the root of it. Tear it out of that inner dark and bring it to the light of another person's understanding, which, as relational beings, is our only true path away from a shamed self. To live this way is to live in danger of giving up on the possibility of that understanding, that depth of interpersonal connection that our sexual lives in particular have the potential to embody. You might make the decision to choose self-concealment from others in your sexual life. Choose a celibate lifestyle in the false certainty that you cannot truly fulfill yourself, or more importantly, truly fulfill a loved other. Such a life choice is not wrong in itself, but when driven by the false necessity of shame, it may be later exposed in the harsh, reflective light of midlife as a grievous mistake. Given my own current midlife immersion in that harsh light, my first inclination was to politely decline the invitation to speak today. But here I am because the organisation making the request was Musculoskeletal Australia, where I've been honoured to volunteer in various capacities over the years, where I've been blessed to meet and work with people of the highest professionalism and the deepest compassion, where for the first time in my life, I sensed the possibility to safely acknowledge the depth of my actual moment-to-moment struggle with AS. To safely acknowledge the struggle was one I could never definitively win. Most of us can reflect of a given person, often when they've passed away from us, that they will never know how much of a difference they made to our life. And I think that can also be said of given organisations, truly humanistic organisations, those which exist to dignify our wounds rather than manufacture our wants. I can say it of MSK Australia. So my final thought is for all my unknown comrades in that community of lifers with chronic MSK conditions, particularly those of you who are nearer to the beginning than the end of your struggle, and know you are facing a profound, lifelong challenge to your own most fundamental hopes. It's this: don't do as I did. Don't isolate yourself. Don't develop coping strategies that involve performative stoicism, hiding the true face of your struggle from others. Don't lose faith in the possibility of authentic connection with others, meaning the risk of showing others your whole self, wounds and all. Always be looking for and connecting to the places where your wounded self can be acknowledged by people with the gift to bring that self gently to the light and newly reveal to your own eyes its true strength and dignity. Know that MSK Australia is such a place, and its people are such people. Thanks to all of you for allowing me to begin in honesty and find myself ending in hope.
Thank you, Matthew. That was absolutely incredible. I think everyone would agree. Can I ask everyone to give Matthew another round of applause? That was just amazing. Well, that will be a hard act to follow, but follow it we will. Our next speaker this morning is the multi-award-winning national science reporter for The Age and Sydney Morning Herald. In 2019, he was awarded the Eureka Prize for Science Journalism, and in 2020, he won the Wakely Award for Short Feature Writing. Being relatively new to the musculoskeletal world, one of my first points of business was to pick up a copy of Backup and start reading, and I'm so pleased I did. Liam Mannix has written an incredibly personal, insightful, and at times confronting book on the complex area of health known as back pain. We are so pleased to have Liam here with us this morning, and we're doubly thrilled that he will also be delivering the annual Coadlo Community Lecture this evening. Can I please ask you to join with me in welcoming Liam Mannix?
Wow, I'm not really sure how I follow up that speech from Matthew. Extraordinary, extraordinarily moving. I suppose what I want to say today goes along with that extraordinary sense of the pain and the problems in this field, but perhaps adds a little bit of hope. The reason that I wrote Backup, or what I discovered upon writing Backup, is that I think we are at a time that is really exciting in back pain, because for the first time we are really starting to understand some of the drivers of back pain, some of the real causes, and we're starting to frank that understanding with treatments that really work. And that is tremendously exciting. So that's what I'm going to speak about at the Coadlo tonight. I'm really honoured to be invited to do so by Musculoskeletal Australia. They're a very scientific, very evidence-based organisation, and let me tell you folks, That is not particularly common in back pain, unfortunately, so thank you to them. I'm going to tell you a little bit about backup and a little bit about what you might hear tonight if you want to tune in for the Coadlo at 7 o'clock. So why did I write this book? I wrote it because much of my childhood was consumed by my father's experience of chronic back pain. He's a journalist like me. In his 30s, he travelled all around Europe carrying a very heavy tape recorder. And at first, he developed a little bit of back pain from being on planes, and he thought nothing of it, as many people do when they first develop back pain. But it stayed with him, and stayed with him, and as the years went on, it got worse and worse and worse, until he almost felt his body twisting or corkscrewing around his spine. He started to walk with a limp, and then he started to walk with crutches. He thought he would end up in a wheelchair. The treatments that were offered to him didn't work, and in fact made things worse. He picked up an opioid addiction. He spent a very strange time in an interventional pain clinic. He, at this point, thinking that nothing would fix him, contemplated suicide, which I didn't know and learned through writing this. At the same time as he was going through this, I was going through my own journey with back pain. Thankfully, it wasn't as bad as his, but I still spent a lot of time in bed, a lot of time lying down, a lot of time experimenting with different treatments, which again, as I went on to learn, didn't have an evidence base behind them. And then my father had an operation, and almost as suddenly as it came, this phantom of back pain that haunted our lives, it seemed to vanish, very strangely. And so that's why I wanted to investigate back pain, because it's a very strange, very counterintuitive illness, but it's also an illness that causes a terrific amount of suffering. So tonight in Coadlo, I'm going to sort of talk through three themes. What we're starting to learn about the causes of back pain, what we're starting to learn about the current way we treat back pain, and some of the really exciting new treatments that are starting to come online now. It won't surprise anybody when I tell you that back pain is an epidemic. The numbers, the amount of money that we spend is extraordinary. And when I started interviewing scientists about it, I found to my surprise that they weren't so much upset as they were angry, because they had known for quite a long time now that the way that we were treating back pain, the operations, the opioids, many of the interventional pain practices, weren't making back pain better, and were in many cases making it worse, while costing us an extraordinary amount of money. Where does this epidemic of back pain come from? For a very long time we've been told that it's because our backs are somehow weak. Perhaps, we weren't meant to walk, as it were. We're animals that should be on all fours, that our spines will sag and bow as we get older, and our discs will slide out of place like Jenga blocks. Now, of course, the science has never supported that. We know that a healthy back is a strong back. We know that strong men can do extraordinary things with their spines without falling to pieces. And yet, what is starting to become clear is that this narrative, this idea of fragility, has really taken hold in our brains, and it's had an effect. It's primed them to be very fearful, to be very worried when we get a bit of back pain, which is probably sort of a normal thing in life. And that priming sets us up for a world where we see an increasing level of back pain, and where we personally become very fearful about back pain, hold ourselves tense, stop moving, do some and make changes to our brains that push us towards this sort of dark whirlpool of chronic back pain, where it never goes away. So we're starting to learn this new approach, which is telling us some really interesting new things about back pain. Then we have treatments. As I said, many of the treatments that we offer at the moment, surprisingly, do not have a lot of evidence behind them, or the evidence that we have even suggests that they may be harmful. One of the ones that I've looked at closely through The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald is spinal cord stimulators. They're these extraordinarily expensive computers that can be wired into your spine. For a very long time, the industry said, this is the future of pain treatment. We will somehow interfere with your pain signals by shooting electricity into your nerves. The industry for a very long time didn't have a lot of evidence to make this case, but very happily pushed these devices on us. It's only now that scientists are starting to do the high-quality independent studies that really raise questions about whether these work at all. And we know that they come with significant harms. We know that the leads can move. We know that they can be infected. We know that the devices themselves can malfunction and shock you. We know that that can lead to some really awful side effects, including incontinence and sometimes even paralysis. This is the current standard of back pain treatment. What we didn't have for a long time is an understanding of why these treatments weren't working. We were doing so many things to people. We were cutting out discs and we were fusing bones together and we weren't getting good outcomes. But what's now, I think, exciting is we're starting to understand why that might be. Let me tell you about one more treatment that will make sense of this, I think. A common therapy for back pain is to attack the nerves. We will say, this is a painful area, so let's burn the nerves out, or let's cut them out, so that there's no sensation there anymore, and so therefore there should be no pain. What we now see in high-quality studies is that quite often this doesn't change the level of pain. You remove the nerves, you cut the signal, you cut the cord, but the pain is still there. And what that tells us, some scientists say, is that pain is so much more complex than just a signal running from a nerve to a brain. So this complex view of pain, pioneered by some people like Lorimer Moseley, who you're going to hear from, is really underpinning a new generation of therapies. These therapies focus on the brain, and they do really remarkable things, really unusual things. They'll have patients, for example, look at pictures of backs upside down and simply ask them to rotate them in their mind. Or they'll watch pictures of golfers swinging clubs and hitting balls down the freeway, with this idea of rebuilding the link between the brain and the back, so that the brain can sort of go, actually, my back's in much better shape than I think. These are really unusual treatments. As a scientist, as a journalist, I was quite skeptical when I first came across these. But the evidence base that we're developing for them is really exciting. It suggests that they work well and that they're safe and that they're far less expensive than some of the treatments that we've been offering. So that's a little bit about backup and a little bit about what you'll get to hear at Coadlo tonight. It's at 7 o'clock. I'd love it if you could tune in. We'll also have Chris Marr, one of the world's leading authorities on back pain. He'll be there to answer your questions. Thank you once again. And I would say, just if I can give one last plug, I'm a science journalist, but we do have Lorimer Moseley, one of the world's great pain scientists in the audience. Don't let him get out of here before you ask him how to explain pain. I hope you can join us tonight at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much.
And on that note, I will highlight you can register for the Coadlo this evening. The team have set up some QR codes that you can scan around the back near the food, so please do so when we wrap up for today. So to say MSK Ambassador Michaela O'Neill is an amazing young woman is, I think you will agree, an understatement. Michaela lives in regional Victoria and at the age of 12 was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Michaela did not let this stop her, quite the contrary. She recognised that there are many other young and perhaps not so young people who are also living with the good, the bad, and everything in between of having a musculoskeletal condition. And she was determined to help. She openly shares her life and her journey via her Instagram page and works to educate and support others, particularly young people with these conditions. She is a much valued member of Musculoskeletal Australia's Consumer Advisory Committee and is an MSK Teen Talk moderator. If this isn't enough, She is also an active contributor to a number of Facebook groups aimed at supporting young adults with arthritis, and I must admit I'm getting a little bit tired just reading this out. She is currently in the process of creating a support group in her hometown. It is my great privilege to welcome this morning Musculoskeletal Australia Ambassador, Michaela O'Neill.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I'm very nervous, so just bear with me. Firstly, I'd like to thank MSK today for having me. It's a true honour to be up here speaking to you all. A little bit about myself, what Helen hasn't mentioned, is I'm 22 years old and I have rheumatoid arthritis and some other chronic health conditions. I was first diagnosed when I was 12, however my symptoms were present since I was about 11. It took almost 12 to 18 months to get the diagnosis, as many doctors just blew it off as you have growing pains, which is fair. As an 11-year-old, you would think that. I remember going to the doctor one afternoon and he said, "I'm sorry, Michaela, but you have arthritis." The first thing I said to him, "But isn't that what old people get?" I truly never believed that young people could get this. I'm from rural Victoria, which has had its hardships, living so far away from specialists, doctors and treatments. I've had many obstacles I've had to face over the years, and I'm going to be talking about them today. 4 big ones is education, employment, living in a rural and regional town, and just being a young person with a condition that has no real big awareness. Being a young girl in high school is daunting enough starting year 7, let alone having an arthritis diagnosis on top of that. Halfway through year 7, I was diagnosed and it felt like my whole world flipped upside down. I went to quite a big school. There was about 170 children in my year level alone, and education was probably the toughest thing I've had to face in my life. My school didn't believe me for 4 years. Regardless of doctor's letters, my parents going to the school, they just had the idea that I was trying to get out of PE class. During that time, I did have to do all of PE. I've had to handwrite exams when I couldn't handwrite, and I've had to really tell teachers, I've had to cry to them just to show them how bad this is. I was so grateful when I got to VCE, as the Victorian Department of Education have special consideration. This made my time at school so much easier as I was considering dropping out, because I was at the point of why should I push myself through school if I'm only going to be in so much pain after it. I'm grateful that in VCE I could complete my studies to the full capacity of my other peers. With the special consideration, I was still able to do my Year 12 exams with no issues at all. During high school, when I was 15, I was so excited to get my first job, like many other people. However, I didn't realise how tricky employment would be when you have something like rheumatoid arthritis. When I first was starting out with my casual jobs, I actually got fired from most of them for having rheumatoid arthritis. If I would have to call in sick due to a flare or have to go home early, they would just simply let me go. When I finally found a permanent casual job that I could do, another hardship I faced, that if I did have a flare or had to call in sick, my shifts would be reduced and I'd have to prove to them that I was well enough to work. I've had to face comments from managers and other peers I work with about my arthritis, just calling me old or simply saying that I'm just lying about my condition. Having people say that I'm lying about my condition, unfortunately, is something that I'm quite used to, which is something that I shouldn't have to be used to. Being 22, I do want to show my independence with employment. However, full-time work is not a possibility for me, and therefore things like sick leave and whatnot are not an option. With this, I'm hoping to gain awareness in that part-time people should have sick leave as well, especially when you're living with a chronic health condition. Living in rural and regional Victoria was really hard being a young person growing up. I lived 3.5 hours from Melbourne, which means that's a 3.5-hour trip to the Royal Children's for all my specialist appointments. This was so incredibly hard, not only on myself, but my mum, who would have to take a full day off work just to get me there and back. Although Maps says 3.5 hours to Melbourne, living with arthritis and being in a car that long, you can understand that it would not have taken that long. It was about 4 hours in total with all the stops. As well as my mum missing work to take me, I would have to miss school, which was another thing that then you'd have to catch up on. Living in a regional town as well means that wait lists for your appointments are quite long. Something that I've had to put up with for years and something that I'm unfortunately used to. To put it into context for you, if I want to see a physio, it's about a 6-week wait, and to see an OT, it's about 8 weeks. When you have something like RA, physio and your OTs are your best friends, and having to wait that long can be quite hard. Along the way, being a young person, I've had to navigate friendships, relationships, and all social situations. I've lost so many friendships over my time, as simply friends don't understand what RA is, and they think me counselling plans is just me not wanting to hang out with them, when it's the complete opposite. Having to counsel plans on friends and not being able to enjoy normal everyday social situations like your peers can be so incredibly tough. I've struggled mentally throughout this, especially during COVID, when everyone was out enjoying life after COVID. I was still isolated, and I had lost many of my friends over this time. Relationships can be so hard to navigate when you're a young person with RA. To be honest, I truly did not think that someone would love me because of everything that I have going on. And I'm so incredibly grateful that I have the best partner ever, Bailey, who I know is watching at the moment, who can't be here today. I'm so incredibly grateful that he has shown me what love is when you have a chronic health condition, and someone who will be by your side the whole time. Someone who will support you. He has been there through all of my tough times and will come to most of my appointments for support. Being young as well with something like this is so hard to navigate, which is why I am so big on making a difference. Again, as I mentioned, when I first got diagnosed, there was no real awareness. I knew no one else my age with this, and this is something that I've been advocating for about the last 3 years. I truly think that young people with arthritis need to speak up more, as it's something that really is a hardship in our life. I'm so grateful for Buffy and the team at MSK for allowing me to be a part of Teen Talk and helping out with that. It's an honour to help make a difference to young people's lives and to help and support them along the way. There's some people I'd also like to thank in the room. Jen Nolan, thank you so much for everything you've done for me. 3 years ago, you sent me an email to ask if I would like to share my story, and what has come from that is truly amazing, and I thank you so much for taking the opportunity and the time to help support me and help me with amazing things in my life. I'd also really like to thank Bailey again. He's truly incredible, and I'm honoured to have someone in my life for all the help and support he gives. I really do want to make a difference to young people with chronic health conditions, as I believe that it is something that isn't spoken about. My mentality onto making a change is what would I have liked as a teenager, and that's my mentality on how I go about advocating and how I know that young people want to change in this area. Thank you so much for letting me talk and for the opportunity to be in this room of all incredible people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michaela. That was wonderful. I know we're running a bit behind time, but we are on to our last most impressive speaker, Professor Lorimer Moseley. Lorimer, by his own admission, is fascinated by humans. This fascination led him to become a physiotherapist, then a neuroscientist, a pain scientist, and a science educator. And when Lorimer and I were chatting earlier, apparently I should have put at the very beginning a footballer as well, before a physiotherapist. He led the establishment of UniSA's Impact in Health and is also the Chief Executive Officer of the non-profit Pain Revolution. He has authored over 350 scientific articles and 6 books. He is internationally renowned for his scientific studies on pain and its management. In 2020, Lorimer was made an Officer of the Order of Australia for, and I do have to quote this, distinguished service to medical research and science communication, to education, to the study of pain and its management, and to physiotherapy, to humanity at large. I honestly think it would be pretty hard to top that. Please welcome Lorimer.
G'day. Thanks for hanging around. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming for people at home. Thanks for the lovely intro. I really don't like standing behind lecterns. I feel sort of, or up here, to be honest. Am I allowed to go down the bottom, or do you have to record me or something? Can I go down there? Stay put. Oh, Jan. Okay, I'll stay put. Cool. So I just want to also pay my respects to the Bunwarang people, to Carolyn Briggs, AM, her ancestors, and the other elders, past and present. And great words from Josh, Matthew. Respect, total respect. Both of those talks were just really powerful. I thought I might just tell you a little bit about my story because as all the other people have been speaking, I feel like it's very relevant. I went to high school at Belconnen High, a state school in Canberra. I am a proud Canberran. Watch it. And when I got to high school, 3 things really turned me on at high school. One was football, the round ball game. And I hope it's okay in Victoria to talk about the round ball as the true football. I do respect Australian rules footballers, and they're only one step short on the evolution of sport towards the round ball game. The other thing was biology and psychology, how the human body is. I remember being so turned on by that when I first had a taste of it in Year 9, and it was the thing that I loved doing even at high school. And the third thing were girls. Fantastic discovery. So I finished school and I went and played football. So I played soccer and I got myself into a situation where I was about to go overseas to play, and I did an overhead kick in an exhibition game and I landed on a sprinkler. And I blew up my coccyx, which is the bottom bone in your back, and cracked my sacrum. And that was a really challenging experience for me as a 19-year-old. Changed where I was going in life, had to go and finish school, and then I had about 8 or 9 years of back pain, during which time I became a physiotherapist. And during my degree, I would go to the biology and neuroscience lectures and just think, this is the best. This is so full of hope and opportunity and resilience and complexity. And I would go to my physiotherapy courses and think, you guys should come to these lectures that I'm doing, because what you guys are telling me is not full of hope and possibility and complexity. It was full of simplicity and not a lot of evidence, and Liam's touched on that. And if you haven't got Liam's book back up, get it. seriously get it, because there is so much shite out there about how to manage painful conditions, particularly back pain. Here is a landmark book on what's going on. I really encourage you to get it. It's outstanding. So there I was, becoming a physiotherapist, and then I thought, oh, well, I'll work with elite sport. That would be the thing that people like me would normally do. And after a few years in that space, I became less excited about helping the silver medalist become a gold medalist. Less excited about that than I was about helping a 45-year-old single mother of two who can't get to work and therefore can't live. So that's the sort of patient group I started to work with, and I found that terrifically challenging and actually sufficiently challenging that I got to the stage where I was saying, this is why I don't think I can help you. And I would explain why I don't think my physiotherapy skills are able to help. And I explained that on the basis of my understanding of pain and the complexity of the human. And I started to notice a really interesting and surprising thing. And that was that when I started to explain to people why the biology meant that I can't be that helpful, they would come back and say, I don't know what we did last week, but can we do it again? Because I'm feeling a bit better. And I would be confused. Until it dawned on me that maybe the key here is understanding, is authenticity, is saying, this is yours, I understand this is yours, and you're going to have to help me as a clinician. So, because I'm this way inclined, I started to ask the question more formally. Let's do an experiment. Let's see what happens if we explicitly just try and get as much understanding as we can across about the biology of the human. And let's compare that to a conventional back school education. Let's teach you about how to lift things, how to have a good posture. And those first experiments were showing an advantage of the former. And I remember treating one fellow in particular. I still remember him. He had low back and leg pain, and I explained to him why I didn't think I could really do much for him, but he couldn't help but see the excitement about the biology and the adaptability, the incredible drive of the human to adapt to things. And I saw him once. He never came back to see me again. I clearly healed him with my healing powers. But he did send me a letter 3 months later, and I'm embarrassed to say, for all you health professionals out there, this is a very embarrassing confession, but somehow in my interview with this person, I didn't pick up that he was the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine at the local university. Anyway, his letter said, Dear Lorimer, I consulted you 3 months ago, and although you were not very helpful, I have looked up your academic record, and I'm wondering if you'd be prepared to do a PhD. And I thought, fantastic, PhD, I get to smoke, because people with PhDs tend to smoke. They don't really, I just had this illusion that they did, and I would get a jacket with leather patches on the elbows, hang out in cafes, grow a big Rasputin beard. So I said, sure. And that really is what enlightened me to how to do research. We're in the car on the way here with Jen, and one thing that I feel very passionate about is that science is tops. It is a great way of pursuing the truth. But it is only as good as our ability to get it to the coalface, to get it to people who will gain benefit from it. So that's what I've been doing since I finished my PhD 20 years ago. I've been trying to understand pain and trying to fast track everything we do straight into the hearts and minds of people challenged by chronic pain, of the healthcare professionals who are finding helping these people very challenging. And for the last 15 years, we have shifted our focus towards what recovered consumers are telling us is the most important thing to learn about all of this stuff. And what I mean by recovered consumers is people who consider themselves better than they were. And that's the definition. So they may still be in a lot of pain, but they're living well. They may be pain-free and disability-free, somewhere on that spectrum. And they told us 4 things, and I just want to get across those 4 things as quickly as I can here. And that will require me going down here, so I'm really sorry. Or maybe I'll try and do it up here and shout, but it involves a role play, and I've asked Liam at the last moment if he's happy to participate. So as Liam's coming up, I just want to iterate why I think a day like today and the survey like was launched today by Josh is so critical for humanity. Because these events are critical for making sure we've got the interface between the people like me who are trained in scientific method, the people like Liam who are trained in communicating it, and the people like you who have to tell us where to direct our skills. What should we research? So both of those things are very, very critical. Okay, here comes the role play. Now in a moment I'm going to set things up. Actually, I might need another person just to... Oh no, we're going to say that at the end of this screen here, moving in that direction, the end of the screen is called tissue damage. Right? And then in a moment, Liam is going to be the mechanical load on the tissue. So what I mean by that is how much pressure is on the tissue. And then I'm going to stand in the middle, and I want you to imagine me as a friendly dog, right? And I am pain, and pain is extraordinarily complex. But the whole point of pain is to protect the body tissues. That's how we're going to work. So, I hope this is okay, Jen. Okay, Liam. Okay, so you guys can hear me, right? Yeah? I'll do as loudly as I can. Liam is going to be mechanical force, just to get your bearings. This is tissue damage, and I am pain. Now, in a normal scenario, I will be standing about here, stopping Liam get to tissue damage. And I'll show you what happens when he starts to approach it. Just very slowly walk this way, Liam. At about now, I'll keep going. I'll say, okay, stop. Liam backs off. That was me saying that. I'm pain. That was me. It worked beautifully. Let's go back a bit. Let's now say we're in the body. We are Patrick Dangerfield, elite human performer. Right? What that means is that I'm going to go right back here. I'm going to be really close to tissue damage because he has to get as much out of his body as he possibly can. And he can push it further. But normally, for people like me, I'll be up about here somewhere. But let's say we're in a situation where there's a really important thing happening in the human's daughter's life. And the tissues are becoming slightly endangered. Just walk slowly here. But I'm not interested in Liam. I'm interested in protecting my daughter. Just keep going. I want my daughter to be safe. She's in trouble at the moment. Keep going. And I'm really busy at work, and now we're damaging. Because the pain system was distracted by things that are more important, actually. They're more important. Great. Now let's imagine a scenario where we've got some tissue damage. Let's say we've got a situation where we have inflammatory mechanisms happening inside a joint. An RA, an expand, an osteoarthritis perhaps. If there are inflammatory things happening in the joint or there has been a tissue injury, I move up here. All right, try and move at all. Stop. So the human cannot move. And what's happened is the pain system has become more sensitive. And when there is inflammation, that's because of the detectors in the tissues of the body. They become very, very sensitive. So you can't even move your knee without it hurting. But look how safe it is. So the pain is protecting you. And after an injury, it promotes healing because you can't put any load through the damaged tissue because it hurts too much. But let's go into a way more common scenario like Liam's dad's back. A story that Liam told. Over a period of 20 years, this is what is happening. Over a period of 10 years with RA, I'm also someone who has RA. Over a period of chronic pain, it doesn't matter what sort of chronic pain, this is what happens. The pain just slowly becomes more and more sensitive. And this is all happening inside the brain, inside the spinal cord, and inside your immune system. It's not happening with the senses as much. Now, sometimes you'll have both happening. But here we are 30 years into a chronic pain situation. Try moving, stop. But look how safe you are. So this is when pain becomes the problem. The problem is in the pain system, and it's extraordinarily complex. But what we know, we absolutely know, is that if you are, let's say, it doesn't matter who you are, if you're at Patrick Dangerfield and your daughter is in trouble and you have a chronic pain state, this happens. If the interest rates go up and you're having a hard time meeting the mortgage payments, this happens. Any threat at all to you as a human, your relationships, your work context, the wider world, Gaza, the referendum, whatever is happening, if you've got a sensitised pain system, your pain system responds. Don't sleep very well? Sleep great? Less sensitive. Things are going great with your relationships? You're getting pissed off by your boss? For some people, eat a really hot chili meal. We know all this. Scientific experiments have shown all this to be true. That pain, all pain, is influenced by anything at all that is relevant to the safety of your body. And if your pain system becomes sensitised, it moves more in relation to all these things. So no matter what is happening in your tissues, if you have chronic pain, your pain is overprotecting you. How does it work? Because it hurts. It's brutal. You've heard accounts of that stir you. And many of you know how brutal it is. But what you should also try and bury inside you is that everything matters. So there are many things you can do to reduce the sensitivity of the pain system, to reduce your pain. And one of the last things that our consumers have told us over 15 years that they say is the game changer. The system is trainable over time. The system will respond. So whether or not you've got things happening in your tissues because of a disease process, that still is a thing, and the senses still do this. Make me go backwards and forwards. But every human so far studied has a pain system that responds. I just want to leave you with that. Can you please join me in thanking Liam for an amazing role? I'm happy to chat afterwards. I'm in no hurry to go, but thank you very much for having me.
Okay, thank you for everyone for bearing with us, and we are running a little bit over time. So I'm just going to do a quick sum up as promised or threatened in my trick-or-treating introduction. So I think we can all agree what a truly impressive group of presenters we've had here today, and we've been so very fortunate that they were so willing to share their personal stories with us. So could I ask everyone once again to put your hands together for Josh Burns, Matthew Sutherland, Liam Mannix, Michaela O'Neill and Lorimer Mosley. I would like to ask you to keep that applause going for our incredible sponsors who have supported Musculoskeletal Australia to make this morning such an amazing success. The City of Glen Ira, Gary Peer, Statewide Home Healthcare and Sports Accounting. Thank you.